Thanks, Luke, and thanks everybody for taking your lunchtime today. I know it's a lot better outside than inside today. And that was a great introduction, Luke. I appreciate it. Yeah, at heart, I'm just still a farm boy from Pennsylvania, dairy farmer, but never dreamed where all of the education and technology would take me today. And I want to go over some of that with you. And I'm going to, if we have time at the end of the presentation, I have a little bit more to share with you on other things, but I'm going to focus on UAS applications, wildlife management, just kind of go over this. I'm going to be really quick, and we'll hold questions to the end, but or text them in. But at Steward Green, we do a lot of different things. I'm not going to get into all right now, but if you'd like us at the end, like us on Instagram, you can see what we're up to and how we're hiring and contests that we're having. While I was at Duke Farms, and I'm actually at Duke Farms today, we're having the statewide New Jersey's invasive species strike team today, and Senator Bob Smith has addressed the crowd. So it's a big day in New Jersey for us, getting things moving forward. But we developed this 5-step habitat regeneration model just because we realized that from top PhD level all the way down to interns, everybody needed a way to understand how to do things and in wildlife management and ecology restoration. And so we collected data. It's our first step, baseline. You guys all know this, but I always caution people not to get into analysis paralysis. Then we move on to fauna management. That's both endangered and invasive. And then we move on to flora management. Again, both invasive and protecting endangered species. Step 4 is regeneration. And if you can see behind the people, you're right there. Step 5 is the most important. It's our monitoring and maintenance step. It's like, I don't care if you own a car or house or if you're in a relationship, that's the most important step, right? It's really fun the day we buy the car, but then we've got to start maintaining it. Same with our landscapes. So jump into the UAS, UAV. If I was in person here, I'd ask if anybody had a system or knew what that stands for. It's unmanned aerial systems right now and unmanned aerial vehicles. Right now, if we're a hobbyist, we have some rules. If we fly commercially, we've got some more rules and have to be certified. Flying commercially can be anything from it's your job, like it is ours, or it could be you're flying for your local church and you're going to give them the flyover or whatever you're doing for an event so they can put it on their website. That's still commercial. Types are fixed wing drone, rotary wing, VTOL system, takes off and lands like a helicopter. And now we're using hybrids. They take off in small canopy gaps and then props are turned and can fly fixed wing. The advantages of fixed wing can be like long linear corridors, like maybe right-of-ways, easements, or even river corridors. We can get more done. And the VTOL systems are great because we can just maneuver them so easily around areas. So we use they're like tools. We use whatever we need for the job. And here's some examples of what we fly. So normally I would be asking in the crowd, what's a UAS application that you can think of? Usually the first thing somebody will think of is video production or taking pictures, which that's kind of what we know, right? And so we do get involved with videoing and film production for conservation work. And that's just one of the things. It's not really our forte. Search and rescue, we do get involved with that. We get called out to see if we can find somebody who's usually missing. And we did do that down in Arlington, Virginia. Actually, we found somebody who was hiding behind a tree with a gun. So we were able to help the police down there. Military reconnaissance. That's not it, but that's a prescribed burn in the Pine Barrens, New Jersey. Just going to kind of roll through these, try to keep up. Just different things that we can do. Bridge inspections, we put things on the drones. We can see everything. Everybody see what's going on there. Topography mapping. It just doesn't stop. So this is a model, digital model of what happened here, and maybe you'll see as we fly through. This is not actually flight. It's a digital model that we constructed with data of mudslides and landslides that were 5 acres to 15 acres down in Virginia. They put a pipeline across the ridge of the mountain, of course. Then they, by removing all the root structure, you're going to see all the erosion happening. And then when big events, they have, oops, it froze up. Let's see if I can get out of this. Stop sharing just for a moment. I'm going to stop share and stop playing videos for you guys. I'm going to get back on here. Hang on. Anyway, while I'm pulling this back up again, we needed to basically come up with a strategy for the geotextile engineers that would work. And there was a big snowstorm coming in, so we were able to get that done for them the day of and get it back out to them, which I think was very much appreciated on their end.
I'll mention, yeah, we've flown drones. As Gene gets that going, I'll let you focus on that, Gene, but
Yep.
It is pretty amazing the topographic capacities that you can do with drones. And what they do is they take pictures every so often with 70% overlap of these pictures on a grid over the landscape. And then it's remarkable, the computer programs can tell from the angle and differences between the different pictures to tell like what is the distance down to the ground, and then create these great topographic maps and these digital models that Gene was showing us. It's like he's back on, so.
Very well said. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I've moved past that screen, and I'll try not to do the videos. This is just kind of an example, just representing different reports and studies that we get involved with. A lot of deer studies right in front of you here. So that we're using the drone and sensor technology to find heat signatures to come up with deer density reports. And so here you can see a bunch of deer out in the field. It's easy enough to see them now. When I started this, you can see those little specks. That's what it would look like little specks, and were they deer on a black background or were they not? That we were using airplanes and helicopters. Started to do this back in 2001, before probably some of you were born. So, oops, I am doing video. How many deer do you see here? You don't see any because those are turkeys. But that's just something that I throw in there because we want to make sure that we are able to identify the species. Here we're looking actually into the digestive tracts of the deer. The tech is getting that good. Here's examples of, we've got deer, we've got boulders behind there, and then water, wet areas. So it's what we're seeing at night. And then basically this is for a multiple year study for like we're doing at Rutgers. This is what it ends up looking like, heat maps of, the density maps of where the deer are congregated and located at the time of the study. And in fact, I think this poster is being presented in a New Jersey GIS contest tomorrow by one of our interns. There's Howard County. Some of the parks there that we've sampled, and now we've got 2023's numbers that are going to go in and compare. Like Luke was talking about, we can easily do topography using drones and overlapping the data, coming up with 1 foot or 6 inch even contours to help us with our project's work. Cut fill now is easier than ever. Cut fill just simply means, like, lots of times when we're working on sites, we don't want to import or export soil. So we have to basically engineer how we're going to get the project done without having to do that. And this is an easy way to do that. This is a filtration cleansing field for American Water off the Raritan River. And the process is pretty straightforward, but we're collecting points at the AGL, above ground altitude that we're flying, and then we are processing those points into maps. We could also identify voids like in basins and give quantity estimates for volumetrics. And this is kind of like just a representation of taking the photos from the survey and processing them into an orthomosaic map. With that same data, we could come up with a 3D model, I was trying to show you earlier, or topography map, different things, different products. This is kind of like the translation. Here is a volumetric study again for American Water, and taking all the photos on the left, which only represents about a quarter of all the photos, and then taking that vertical and horizontal data that we're collecting and coming up with volumetric study for them. Just kind of fun fact, like a lot of companies that we work for, not in the area that we're working, this happens to be a energy company down in Houston, said that they couldn't see anything happening on their project in, I think it was in Virginia, Pennsylvania, and on Google Earth when they pulled that up. Well, that's, you know, obvious. So that we're providing real-time data, mapping it, and then laying it right back into Google Earth. And this is an example of another way to show topography. You know, the lower areas being blue, the highest areas being red. And Cedarville University, we're getting creative with those students, and they are actually 3D printing their mapping models now, which is super cool. It's a good example of using the technology to prevent more damage in an area that we're trying to protect. So here is a habitat enhancement project along the stream restoration project. To get out there is going to cause damage. Actually, we're taking wheeled vehicles or maybe even track vehicles out to check on the progress. So, and it takes weeks. This took us about an afternoon to put together and give them the map. And so donors in West Africa, don't need to focus on this too much, but donors like to see that their money is being spent on the missions or wherever the projects that they're focused on. And it's a really easy way to be able to show them everything from the sky, right? It's pretty cool in real time. It's a good example of we got called in to do some assessment on a sedimentation plume. It was taking place in New Jersey, and we knew that there would be a temporary flight restriction put in place because the president was coming into town. So we got out there, we got the work done really quickly, and we're able to provide the data and solutions for the client, which was New Jersey Water Authority. And so we used to get asked a lot, you know, if companies should be outsourcing or doing the flying in-house, companies, universities, whatever. Answer 5 years ago would be outsource it. Now we have systems that are so user-friendly. I'm recommending that people have their own systems, get somebody certified with FAA with the Part 107, and at least be able to take video and still imagery for monitoring and things like that. When it becomes more complicated, sensors can run up to $50,000, then bring somebody in. There's another study for the Water Authority when we're tracking all their seeps and leaks on their reservoirs so that they can understand if there's any flooding or breach of dam issues. They have to do this every 5 years anyway, but if they can understand what's happening, they might be able to prevent flooding downstream or breaching a dam, which could be catastrophic. Here's a good example of, you see in the center of that photo, you see the chillers on top of the building. You see that lightning strike in the center of that. You really can't. And we'd have to have somebody on the building in the past. Lightning strike caused that large tear in the chiller pipe. When we drill in on our data, it's pretty easy to see dollars just floating out into space. Heat loss coming out of old buildings. It's a study we did in for NJIT's campus, a 40 building study on problems that they might be having with the rooftops. I'm just showing you this because just kind of expand the mind on what the thermal work can do for us. So we were able to show them water issues, leaks that they had, infrastructure that was needing to be replaced or fixed. And if we get ahead of this, they think we've saved them millions of dollars by being able to show them or forecast problems that they might have coming up that they wouldn't be able to see with the naked eye. This fan was just running like off its center, like it was going to cause a fire, bouncing around. And then we can take the data and we can formulate priorities to work off from, and we can't manage unless we have good data. So now rappelling down a blade on, from 400 feet down, a blade on a big turbine like this is fun, but it's more safe to mount lasers on your drone and be able to scale damage and write an RFP for the client. Solar photovoltaics, easy to see hot spots. And in this case, we actually can see problems with their asphalt systems, their hardscapes, and report that to them. This is kind of neat. We got called in to see if we can find a leak on campus. It was underground, and they had been exploring for about a week and had classes shut down, and we were able to find it in about 15 minutes using a drone and a thermal sensor. Methane detection, we started to do this. It gets expensive with the sensors, but again, it's very valuable in different things that we've been testing it on. Now we can easily find like gas leaks on pipelines and things like that for energy companies, but then also we got asked to do a cattle study last year for a firm out of DC doing research. And in air quality, this is easier than ever to do now, because basically a drone is like a flying computer, or I'll say, because I'm a farmer, it's a flying tractor, right? It doesn't do anything unless we have an implement hooked up to it. So it doesn't plow, doesn't harvest. The tractor can't do anything unless we have something on that tractor. Same with the drone. This is an example of like for Arlington, Virginia, like what we would put together for a flight plan. And then we present this to FAA. And as you can imagine, flying in Arlington right next to DC has its issues. So we have to be very thorough with our planning to make sure that we're very safe before we go out there. And we're the first private entity that's done a complete county-wide survey using drones and to get these types of permissions so close to DC. So I don't want to go over, all the rules too much, but if you're going to fly commercially, you need your Part 107, and we teach that in some of the in compliance at some of the local colleges, but in universities, But if anybody wants to email me afterwards, I can simply send you a couple of links. It will show you what you would need to get started. You're going to learn about the different types of airspace that you can fly in or can't fly in, or what you need to get permission to fly in. And everything looks like an upside down wedding cake in these airspace models, and be able to read aeronautical maps, which is really cool, or I think so anyway. And yeah, so that's that part. I'm going to move on to what do we do after we've got our data for deer density, and then I think I've got about 15 minutes maybe to roll through a few things here, and then we'll take questions. So this is a case study at Duke Farms. I'm actually at Duke Farms, like I said, today. We had over 300 deer trapped and translocated off the property, which is a horrible project to get handed when you first get to a new place. And instead of being able to do proper deer management in the beginning, we had to trap and translocate until we were not allowed to. And then due to the threat of CWD. And so that was great, because then we could actually do proper management. We had a goal. I set a goal to get us from 300 deer per square mile to 10 deer per square mile on a habitat that was just ravished, right? It should be probably less than that, about 5 deer per square mile. Kept collecting our data annually using airplanes and thermal sensors. And then we implemented a plan where we harvested the first year 604 deer, half with a sharpshooter and half with a 70 qualified participants or hunters, and a lot of venison went in the food banks. And the key to this is still being maintained today, this program. So we did that in 2004. I think it was the country's largest deer management project to date, and it's still being maintained, but not with that many people. Now it's like 3 or 4 people that are maintaining about 5 to 10 deer per square mile on the property. And this is what we're seeing now. We're seeing before, when we could just see through the forest floor, there's no understory coming up. Now we have healthier habitats there already, just by removing the deer. And we've done some reforestation too, but in stream restoration, this is stream restoration done in Princeton, native meadow, pollinator meadow regeneration. This is part of step 4 in that model I showed you earlier. This is what we like to get at once we've controlled, in this case, the deer. It's andropogon, or little blue stem seed, and this is actually lakeshore restoration at Duke Farms. Can't really do any of this until we get a handle on, in this case, the geese, which thought that Duke Farms with 75 acres lakes was Club Med in New Jersey. And good example of introducing bioretention to keep water on site, again, after we've got things kind of controlled out in the landscape with flora and fauna. And now again, jumping back to the UAS, this is a way that we can monitor flora. This case, this is a Phragmites study. And so over the years, controlling the Phragmites, and this is about a 500-acre roebling park in near Camden, New Jersey, or Trenton. And here we're able to tell the untreated frag and the treated pretty easily. And we're doing this in different studies. Obviously, prescribed burning has its place and its role most times, not always. And here we go. This is a campus where we are basically trying to reintroduce ecology on the campus. We'll be doing this for different companies. We're doing it for Exxon out in Illinois right now, but it's not just introducing, okay, well, we need different habitats and meadows and reforestation and bioretention on site. It's doing things differently. It's tearing down the silos. It's working in the politics and getting rid of old school management, I call it. And then we have failure when we put these landscapes in if we don't maintain them properly. And then we have mismanagement. So we're trying to engage through education people to help support these types of initiatives moving forward so that we can have success on campuses like this. Again, it all starts with collecting a little bit of data and then getting started. I don't want to stay focused on that, but we're already having huge success at the campus, enough that we're getting feedback from visitors when they go to the hospital. They feel taken care of as soon as they enter the campus, which is one of the goals. Spotted lanternflies, they're a big issue, but we're taking care of them in such a way that people are really asking questions about what's happening and how they can take care of it at home. So we call this the intersection of business and biodiversity. And these are the real winners, right? And look at that. Flew through and finished. Luke, you want to guide questions? If you would be kind enough to follow us on Instagram or Facebook, then you could see like some of the things we have going on and follow our adventures and hiring and all that. So, okay, Luke.
Thank you, Gene. What is your Instagram handle? Do you know it offhand, or do we just look up Steward Green?
Look up Steward Green on Instagram. It's going to pop up. Yeah.
Gotcha.
I think it's Steward Green Consulting. Great.
Yeah, we got Woody Shields had a question, and I jotted down a few myself. So Woody asked, what time of day do you perform the deer surveys? He said,
Great.
I sat for a morning hunt in West Friendship in Howard County with the highest deer density, and no one harvested a deer. And I've actually been on some of those hunts, those managed hunts in Montgomery County, and also did not see deer on one or two of my hunts. So yeah, maybe you could talk about what time and how to find deer.
I want to say West Friendship. This year we saw a lot of coyotes there. So we do we do the density surveys at night, and the reason we do them at night is probably more than threefold. But one is we have less activity out at night, human activity in this case in the parks, and we're not always doing parks. Sometimes it's larger areas or complete counties. So we do it at night. Also, we get a greater contrast with temperature. So the ground temps, we're doing this work between usually in the Northeast, now we had an early spring, but usually between Thanksgiving and April, and sometimes the end of April and into May. It won't be the case this year because we have early leaf on, but we'll be doing some of this in Michigan tomorrow night, and that's because they're a little bit more north, and we can do that and provide good data. But we have a cooler ground temps produce a higher contrast for us to be able to see heat signatures, and then also at night we have less competition with other heat signatures. And what are they? Well, it's like the boulders, water, puddles. Even like when we're going in and around neighborhoods, we can see all the street lights, all the inlets, the drainage inlets, the manholes, everything shows up. And if we didn't know what we were looking at, we would just see a lot of different heat signatures. But we can rule that out, especially after the radiant heat has settled down after the day, after the sun is set for a couple of hours. The trees this time of year are showing up really bright because they're full of energy right now. So they show up and they become competition. I was sharing with Luke, we did a study for Penn State a couple weeks ago on their enclosed deer herd in their research area. And there was competition there, even like boulders and puddles of water and things like that. But we had a nice enclosed herd that we could kind of quantify our data collection, and we were spot on. That was kind of neat, but that's why we do it at night.
Cool. And anybody who's listening, please do feel free, think of any questions to pop them into the chat. I was interested in hearing a little bit more about the Phragmites work you did. Is there any solution to the Phragmites? Was it successful? And also just more broadly, what kind of applications for invasive plants, other invasive, you're at an invasive plant conference, so I'm sure you're thinking about other invasives and the tools that can be used. Are there pesticides that can be sprayed from drones and things like that? Herbicides. I mean.
There's like probably 2 hours packed into that question, but there, simply put, the Phragmites study is happening right now, is successful, and they're going in with they're replacing it with rice. So they're going in with rice in this area because it's a estuary not too far off from the Delaware River. So they've seen a tremendous amount of success over the last 5 years. I don't think I thought I had a slide, but I didn't see it in here. We just did for Exxon, we just did a common milkweed study for them. So that's a good thing, right? And they're just trying to demonstrate that they are on one of their campuses doing grasslands implementation, not just to bring in grassland birds. I wouldn't say that the areas are actually large enough for that, but they have a lot of milkweed coming in these patches of milkweed. We were able to quantify it just by flying and mapping it. They have like 30% coverage of milkweed, which has been phenomenal for the monarch butterflies, right? And then we are able to, I would say about 15 species of invasives will emerge generally before the natives do. It's not, set in stone or anything like that. But my point is that in the spring, like right now, we can be mapping invasive species, and every species has its own color signature, right? So we can be mapping them, whether we're doing it using multispectral or just a regular mapping camera. We can identify species and then be able to, if we do that annually, we can, if we're managing the area, we can be able to report on the quantity of decrease, hopefully, in the invasive species. And it's an easy way to go out there. I can tell you at Duke Farms, which is 4.25 square miles, over 2,700 acres. It took us a full 1.5 years to map the invasive species here. It was like ground zero. But that was all boots on the ground back in 2004 and 5. Now we could map that in a day and then have the product out for analysis that week, and really have a tool to work with in 2 weeks. So it's really a game changer. As far as spraying goes, we have been asked if we can use drones for spraying aquatic invasive species. And so we're looking into that. I know it can be done. I just don't know if it's efficient just yet. And I'm always not wanting to overspray anything. So, if we can have something, a model where we are, point spraying and not blanket spraying, I'm in favor of that. So we're looking into that right now, actually, for a couple of firms.
Cool. Yeah, we've had a couple of my colleagues in the agricultural side of extension have been working with a guy named Kirk with KT Drone Services, and he's been experimenting with pesticides or herbicides and spraying, and also seeding cover crops with drones. Yeah. And I think one of the big things is the capacity, how much spray you can get into a tank and work. So with the cover crops for seeding, for example, it was all very small seeded species that you could fly on with low rates and not a lot of poundage to get up. So
I would say the key to success in UAS is flying heavier payloads for longer amounts of time, right? And making it all user friendly as possible and safe. So in those 4 things keep improving all the time. There have been over the last couple of years on most systems geofences installed, which just means like you can be flying if you don't know what you're doing or what area you're over, and you fly into an invisible geofence. The drone just kind of bounces off from it like it's, you know, a real fence and can't go any further unless you have permissions to do so, and you can take that fence down. So it's always getting better. Right now, most of our systems heat the batteries up themselves, which helps us in the dead of winter when we're collecting a lot of this data. Sometimes we're at, you know, 0 to 10 degrees with a battery system that won't work that way. But now the drones actually heat them up themselves. And we used to get really creative with like hand warmers taped to everything, and everything's getting just so much better now. So it's good.
Yeah. Great. Cool. Yeah, no, I certainly believe that there is huge advancements to be made with these in the coming years. So,
Oh yeah.
I've also imagined in areas with multiflora rows when that's the only thing that's green in this early spring or even in the winter, that you could target spring, because it's so hard to walk through some of that stuff. The thorns and everything else is like, wow, this would be a perfect thing to fly. Drones, spray the plant, move over, spray the plant. So
Yeah, exactly. Like that stream restoration model I showed you. Yeah.
Cool. Cool.
And the, you know, honestly, it's just kind of funny how I got into this, but I ran into or I met somebody at a Wildlife Society conference in Wisconsin in 2005 who told me that I could do my work better with drones. And this is a couple of years before the iPhone comes out, and I'm thinking, why this is not a military thing I'm doing, you know. And he was already building systems to aid him. He's a wildlife biologist, and he was doing wood rat research in Allegheny National Forest, and they nest in the cliffs. And he found it much easier and less damaging to monitor their habitat using drones, which makes a lot of sense. And so it's kind of funny, we get called out to do eagle nest monitoring and all kinds of things where we're not invasive in the habitat, but able to monitor and report. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. You describe a little bit on, you showed some slides where how you do the mapping, like topographic mapping. Can you describe the approach for deer density surveys? Do you try to fly the edges of forests? Do you fly a grid pattern? Maybe share a little bit about the techniques you use when you're.
That's a good question. So when I started to do this type of work with the heat signatures, the airplane would fly, or helicopter, usually airplane would fly transects, just like we would do if we did a mapping project. And then there would be a count from on board the plane, but then also a more thorough count after we reviewed the data, and we'd get like stacks of VHS videotapes, which were very painful to go through. And you know, I started to catch like mistakes, like 13 deer reported in this one area. I'm like, no, that's 13 horses in a horse pasture and all that. But so over time, when I started to use drones, I stopped doing the transect automatic flights and started to do manual flights, because I really like being able to have an oblique angle on the camera to be able to see body structure a little bit, and be able to stop and maneuver over certain areas if I need to see underneath a forest of evergreens or around a building or something like that. I can do that right on site. We also map real time, and so I don't always put this in the presentation because it's kind of like sharing the trade secrets here, but we also map real time using Esri and just a handheld tablet. And so we're locating the deer or bear or whatever we're doing for the survey. We're doing that in real time, which is really a game changer, and from the way we used to do it, and it's better. just better all the way around. And then it's funny, like we get asked if we can do like rabbits in New Zealand, or a couple of weeks ago, New York City Parks wants to know if we can quantify their rat population in Bryant Park. And it's been very interesting.
Wow. Rats. I hadn't even thought about using drones for rats. That's awesome.
I hadn't either.
Oh, we had another question coming from John Hooven, my colleague over in the forestry side of things with Extension. He said he wanted to clarify whether using LiDAR with drones. And then he had a follow-up question, but I'll start with that one. Have you experimented at all with using LiDAR?
Yeah, LiDAR is great. It's getting great, I'll say. In the beginning, LiDAR pucks weren't really the best quality, or they weren't working too well, and they were really expensive. Now they're getting to be more affordable and better quality, and so LiDAR is becoming increasingly attainable. I always want to be trying to think of what budgets look like for different entities, and a lot of budgets can't afford big expensive studies, but when the technology gets a little bit better and the prices come down, it's and the quality gets better, then I do promote it. So yeah, LiDAR is a great way to be mapping, but a lot of people think that that's all you need to map, and we really don't. We can do it with regular mapping cameras, but if we need to penetrate the vegetation, LiDAR is excellent. Yeah. What's the second?
What are the tools in particular when you would use LiDAR for topography or to see underneath the canopy? And explain maybe the use case where it is crucial to have versus not.
Yeah, so lots of times we're getting involved on sites that have just big layers of invasive flora on them, and it's a facade of what the actual ground level is for using a regular mapping camera. LiDAR will penetrate that. Also, LiDAR will penetrate to like a evergreen forest, be able to see deer at night. So it's great uses for LiDAR for sure.
So can you actually make out a deer's shape with LiDAR through a canopy cover?
No, it's going to just pop up as a plan view heat signature. We don't have we're not looking at an oblique angle, but yeah, it shows up.
Wow. John had another question for the Duke Farm work that you did. How difficult was it for the property to get permits to cull the herd?
Somewhere between extremely difficult and near impossible, but we were pretty persistent, and we had a board. This is, I think, was crucial. We had a board of directors that most of them had a position at one time on some presidential cabinet, or just very high, powerful people who we were able to convince to move into deer management, and warn them that we probably would get pushback and protesting, and we did at the end, and we even got a death threat on the project. But I think the most crucial point politically was to have the backing of that board who had our backs moving forward. We put a really good plan together. We, instead of seeking permission from everybody, we partnered with UAS Fish and Wildlife, with New Jersey Fish and Wildlife. We tried to bring in all the municipal stakeholders, the county, the township, so that everybody feel part of it. I was trying to actually be the first domino to knock down other dominoes, and it did work. Actually, once we got approval from the council, we moved forward on our plan. The township, the county, New Jersey Audubon, they all moved forward with their plans while we were taking all the heat. So it was quite an effort that year in the state, where other entities got on board. But I would say, like in that one slide, I said we have to tear down the silos and the political walls and things like that. That was big. I think another thing for us at Duke Farms is it's technically a private owned foundation. So that's, I think, going to make it a lot easier than a public, although we treated it like it was public, it's open to the public. We held public meetings about it. But it's, at the end of the day, it's a private foundation. So that's obviously makes it easier too.
Great. And I know everybody can go to your website and see all the services you offer. Do you want to maybe briefly just share it? It sounds like you guys are able to do all 5 of those pieces in your initial slide, from baseline to restoration and all the other pieces. Any things that you'd like to highlight that you guys are available to work with, if any of the people watching this are interested in any work being done?
I mean, we wake up every day. We love what we do. I just don't like the paperwork, but we focus on, I would say the skis in the wintertime for us is the deer density, mostly the projects that we do. I think we did about 25 of those studies this year. So we're actually looking to hire a UAS pilot and somebody who we can train to analyze data better. So that's what we kind of do in the winter. But then from now until Thanksgiving, and we get really busy with bioretention, which includes like bioswales and rain gardens, and just sometimes just consulting on that stuff. Design, ecological design, like I was telling you, we're going to be doing for Exxon's campus out in Illinois soon, and a couple of parks in New Jersey right now. And then we do a lot of the implementation too. We find that if we have control over the projects, a meadow is going to just perform better if we're designing it, seeding it, and then monitoring it, right? So, and then we consult on the deer management stuff. We don't really get involved anymore in actual deer management, but we'll consult on like the process moving forward to be successful. Because I see every case as different. I don't see one identical one ever. So they all have their, issues, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, I grew up in Texas and spent a lot of time in California, and I will say that I'm quite impressed by the deer management programs on parks that Maryland has. I think they're really quite advanced. This very progressive ability to manage deer in a very organized fashion. So
I think Montgomery and now Howard County are setting precedent for how to do deer management in urban and suburban areas, because utilizing park police for sharpshooters is, I think, an excellent win-win. They get their credits and then deer go down, and I think it's been an excellent program.
Cool. Yeah. So Gene was mentioning, so these parks use both sharpshooters by their park police, but also have managed hunts by the public, where it sounds like Woody's participated in one of those before, where you can apply, and I've done them 1 year. You can apply and you go. I think what Gene was describing is a saturation hunt, where they'll have a lot of hunters out one morning and target the deer that way. So,
as long as it's done safely, I'm always in favor of it.
Right.
Yep.
Well, great. Well, thank you for joining us, Gene. It's been a pleasure. It's nice to have somebody from the private side sharing their work, and everybody who joined, thank you for joining today. Don't forget to run over to our YouTube channel, give us a like, give us a subscribe, tell your friends about it. And if you'd like to also encourage, send this to your friends. I'm going to put in the chat the